Hello, everybody.
Hi, everybody. Welcome to the first episode of our new live stream called Conscious Conversations. We are your hosts, Christopher and Sara, and we're just super pumped to start this series with you where we literally just chill. Like, we literally just hang out together.
Just a conversation. That's it. We wanted to, we try to make things too complicated at times. We try to, dream up the extravagant ideas. Really, when at the end of the day is just having a conversation.
Just having a conversation about things that we would already be having a conversation about if the camera wasn't watching. So this idea came to us because so many people on our Facebook pages were like, hey, you should start doing YouTube because we like to do a lot of personal development videos. And one of my friends in high school was like, you guys should literally just talk on YouTube. Just talk. And it clicked. We were like, we cannot get enough of conversation with each other. Like every night before we go to bed.
Just to give you an idea really quick, and we're going to just kind of go into this a little bit before we actually start the actual conversation itself. But to give you an idea, we sit in bed every single night and have these conversations, and we talk about all of these different things that come to mind, not just what happened in our day, but we get into philosophical discussions,
spiritual matters, personal growth,
and we'll sit there and sometimes 2-3 hours will pass us by, and we're like, oh my gosh, where did the time go? And so instead of doing that, which we still do and love, we want to bring this to an audience. We want to bring this to people so that possibly you could get something out of this conversation. You can learn something. You can teach us about something. You can, whatever. This is an exchange. We're going to be talking, but we're going to allow you to type in anything that you're thinking, you're feeling.
We're inviting you at a seat to our table. And basically, we're just going, the beautiful thing about this is the fact that also so many of you have given us ideas to talk about. You've provided the topics because we wanted to make sure that we were at least talking about something worth listening to, right? And so we want to make sure that you can get value out of this by talking about what you suggest. So we have a list like this long on our whiteboard.
We got our whiteboard in there, and it is
all from you guys.
Yep.
All from you guys. We have a list like this long.
Yeah, there's probably like 25 things on there. So it's great because now we have this list of topics, and we're always willing to discuss other topics that you suggest. So please let us know, and we'll be more than happy to add it to the list.
Absolutely. And so, shall we get into tonight's topic?
Let's do it.
We got our water. We should have tea next time. So this episode's title is The Trust Component of Clarity. The trust component of clarity. And I want you to just kind of sit on that for a moment. What does that even mean? Trust, component, clarity. Like, what do those words together mean? And the reason why this is a topic to be discussed is keyword clarity. Clarity, 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 right? Like, all of our clients, they want one thing. That's clarity.
Clear vision.
Clarity. They want to know that the path that they're walking is the path that's right for them. They want to know what's on the other side. They want to make sure they're not making mistakes. But Chris and I were talking the other night about how let's break down clarity. What actually is clarity? And is this something that you can have? Is it something that you find elsewhere? And we started to realize that clarity, you cannot lack clarity. And we'll get into our conversation, but you cannot lack clarity. You can only lack trust.
And why do people want clarity? People want clarity because clarity equals confidence. Clarity equils a knowing. It's a good feeling. When you have clarity, it's a wonderful feeling to have. And so that's why people are striving for clarity. But before we get to clarity, there needs to be this component of trust, in which what we're going to discuss tonight and get into that topic and what that actually means for you. So.
And us. We're just going to hash this all out. And these conversations are a place for you to slow down. To slow down with us, embrace the silences, the moments in between. really allow those gears to spin without worrying about coming up with the answers, right? And so what was this? This was like 2 weeks ago, right? We were talking about the trust component of clarity.
Yeah, just about 2 weeks.
And it dawned on us too, because this wasn't actually something that we, people don't come to us saying, hey, how can you help me get my trust component of clarity? Like, nobody does that, right? So we were thinking, like, what is clarity? And so, like, what does clarity even mean to you? Like, when you hear the word clarity, what does that mean?
Clarity is, like I said before, it's a knowing. I see everything for the first time. It is the vision. It is looking at something in HD. It's looking at something in 4K Ultra, the highest definition of the high.
So, like, when you're experiencing these peak moments of clarity, how do you know that it's clarity?
Well, it's, as I said before, to me, it's a knowing, right? It's this all knowing, this intuition that everything is right. But besides that knowing, it's the vision that I see. It's when I close my eyes and I see the path, the road laid out in front of me. And it's just that.
And you know it.
And I know, and that's the most important thing, is that I actually know this. It's an
all-knowing
feeling.
Right there, though, is where people get tripped up. They
Yeah,
don't get tripped up dreaming. They don't get tripped up, like, seeing the path.
Mm-hmm.
They get tripped up on this part, the
Yes.
trust component. And I'm pointing to your heart because I feel like trust is in your heart. Like, this is the spot where people get stuck.
Well, that's because, I think, and I can speak from just my own perspective, that for so many years I lived in my head. And living in your head allows you to do a lot of wonderful things as far as logic and analytics are concerned. But when it comes to the all-knowing, you can't feel with the head. You can only feel with the heart. And so getting into that heart space takes time, but there's a component to get into that heart space.
It just cracks me up because, like, I hear this a lot too with clients. Like, they'll be on a coaching session and they'll say, I need clarity on. I need clarity on this. Sarah, today, can you help me get clarity on that?
Mm-hmm.
And every time I hear it, I'm like, get clarity, get clarity, get clarity. Listen to our language, get clarity. That's already coming from a scarcity mindset, right? Because we think that we have to obtain something that is outside of ourselves.
But it's already there.
It's never been not there.
Yeah.
Clarity is not something that you can just pull in and all of a sudden have on your own.
Well, and something that just came to mind, which is like almost the perfect analogy, right? It's that we look at our windows, right, and the blinds are closed, and they're closed, and you're not letting in the sunlight. But it's as soon as that you pull those shades up and open the blinds, the sun comes shining in. The sun was already there. The sun was already there shining, but you didn't see the sun because the shades were closed. So all you had to do was open the shades. But to get to that point is what we're talking about. So we're defining what this clarity means. But what is it? How do we get to that point of clarity?
I think, though, as you were talking about the metaphor with the blinds, the biggest point, there's a trip up beyond the trip up.
Okay, what is that?
So the trip up is whether you're aware.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so that's the first one. That precedes the trust component.
Yeah.
The first trip up is awareness. It's knowing, it's seeing.
Good, so
wait a minute, before I lose this train of thought. So this is the first trip up. The lack of awareness.
Yep.
That's what we want to do first, is increase the awareness. But then you see the path, you see the signs, you feel it. But then here's the second trip up. Trust. So if you're opening the blinds, that's awareness. Peeking through the blinds, seeing the sun, and not doubting that the sun is the one shining.
That's good.
That's where you're good. That's where you've got the trust component. That's where you got the trust component. As soon as you say, I'm not too sure that's the sun shining, I think it's the moon, when in fact it's not, you're automatically doubting the fact that
that's where the illusion is. And so, I like to just stem off of the first part of awareness, because that is the first part. Having the awareness that you are opening the blinds and taking that journey is the most important before it precedes trust. Because without having the awareness, and that takes time to get to that point of actually having the awareness that you're going to open the blinds. Yet we walk through life and we go through the motions and we do all these things without awareness. It's unconscious. It's what was the thing that you always tell people, which is like so mind blowing, that we actually work on a 90% unconscious level by the time we're 35 years old. Whoa. That's scary as shit.
So how can we have clarity? I'm putting bunny ears because you can't have or obtain clarity, right?
Yeah.
How can you open yourself to clarity if you're operating at a 95% unconscious level? If you are operating each day mostly unaware,
that's tough.
How can you even begin to see the path unfold? You can't. And so that's what we're talking about here. And so I want to kind of like reverse.
Yeah.
So when you were talking about what clarity means to you, I want you to think of a time, and I want you guys too to do this for yourselves. You're at this seat at our table. I'm almost pretending like I can see your face, right? Imagine a time you felt you were super clear. Now, really, really like close your eyes and think about this. Imagine a time that you were super clear. You felt as though you had clarity. You were awakened to the path, the unfoldment of your true journey. Think about it for a second.
I already have it.
When was a moment of utter clarity?
Well, and let me just.
But I want to tune you into something.
Okay, all right. It was when I decided that the life I was living, what I was no longer supposed to live, or I felt that I had to live it, and I had a clear opening. And it was when when I was going to the Peace Corps. I knew at that time, it was so clear. The path had just opened up in front of me, and I knew I had to walk it. I knew it.
So in that moment that you knew it, when you knew you had to go to the Peace Corps, you knew that your clarity path was not in fact A, it was actually B. When you knew, because you keep saying, I just knew, relive that experience as if you're reliving it now. Like imagine it in your mind, and you can do the same. Imagine that you're living this moment of utmost clarity, reliving it in your mind. What do you notice in your body? What was your body signaling to you in that moment that you knew?
The first word that comes to mind is sparks. And when I say sparks, I mean tingling. I mean just lit up like a freaking Christmas tree. Like I know, and it's a knowing, and from the tingling is signaling that knowing, and I'm feeling it in my gut. I'm feeling it everywhere in my body. It's just tingling.
And you captured the essence of that energy with that metaphor that I lit up like a Christmas tree. That's the feeling, the sensation. That's your state of being. Okay, so you awakened to the clarity, but you also manifested it as well, because your energetic state was in a reflection. It was a match for the external experience, which was the reflection of your inner state.
So it was the thoughts and emotions coming together.
But the beautiful thing is, so that's conscious manifestation. We'll save that topic for another day. To kind of peel it back about how you felt, the tingling sensation, feeling like you were lit up like a Christmas tree. That was your body's indicators telling you, oh, I trust that this is my step. You already were aware. You had a choice, a fork in the road where you could have doubted that, no, maybe the Peace Corps isn't the right thing for me right now. I've got a good paying corporate job. I'm making a hell of a lot of money. I'm leading people. Why would the Peace Corps...
Doing everything I went to school for and got a master's degree in.
Why would the Peace Corps be your moment of clarity? But see, that's the thing, is you were already aware enough to know that something was mismatched. And then you were able to tune into your body. You were able to notice the way that you felt in that moment of trust.
Well, my awareness actually preceded that in actually many years before, because it was this calling that I had to help people. Yet the way I was helping people and the avenue I was pursuing wasn't the way it turned out that I thought it would be. And so this yearning to help people kept coming up, but how was I going to do that? And that's when the Peace Corps opened, and that opened the road for me to want to help human beings and do what I wanted to do.
So what I just heard you say is that one of the reasons you were able to trust that this was in fact clarity was because it was in alignment with the core values that you were pulling out of yourself.
Absolutely. And that was helping people.
Which you weren't doing previously. So you didn't have that synergistic relationship.
Exactly. I was helping people, but not in the facet I wanted to help.
But you didn't have that relationship with your values and your actions.
No.
So you switch over to path B, Peace Corps. You have the body signals, the experience, almost a spirit, you could call it even a spiritual experience.
It was. Absolutely.
You had that in that moment when there was no longer a gap between your actions and what was most important to you, your core values. So there's another component of clarity, is to be a reflection of your core values. And these are your fundamental driving forces. So now we've got so many components of clarity. Awareness component of clarity, the values component of clarity, the trust component of clarity. So now you see why I'm trying to say that clarity was never a thing to have. It's a thing to awaken to, and we have to pull back the ego, pull back the layers, pull back the masks of who we think we are, reprogram ourselves into what is in alignment with our true core, and then you can see clarity. But it's beautiful because you don't have to do it all at once.
Well, you mentioned something which I actually thought was interesting, because you said the ego, right? And so the ego is what the state of being I was living in, especially when I was consuming myself with the status of having a high-paying job, a very high up leadership role in a corporation, in a company, the type of car I was possibly going to drive. And I'm sort of making myself sound very shallow, and maybe to a degree there was some shallowness. But I always had the heart component, Rich, so that helped me out there. But I reflect back on this, and it was really just the drop of an ego. Okay, so I'm going to go live in this small little village and go shit in a hole for 2 years and do what I'm going to do. I had to drop the ego because the ego was consuming the way I lived, the status I was living, everything I was living. And so that is huge, to drop that part.
It's like little mini ego deaths that you have to experience to get to that point of clarity. So I want to let's go back, because we're going down so many because we're painting a picture of clarity is essentially what we're doing. Because if you don't know what clarity is, how can you awaken to it?
How can you?
So this is our opinion, obviously, of what clarity is, and none of this is bullet pointed, or we didn't make notes for this episode. We're literally unpacking this as we talk right now in real time.
And that's the other beauty of what we're going to be doing.
We want to let you in on our thought process unfolding, where we can also share our expertise. You might notice that I coach him sometimes, in the sense that I'll ask him certain questions and bring him down to reveal, you were able to tap into the way your body feels when you trust.
Yep.
So I know when I trust in the synchronicity of this moment of clarity, when I trust in the step forward, even if it's not logical, even if it doesn't make sense, when I know that I trust in the next step, I actually do feel it in my heart. I'll feel this. It's akin to excitement, I guess.
Yeah.
Where you get that energetic, expansion. You just know. And that's why people say, oh, you just know. You just know when you know. That what they mean is you just feel it. You just feel it. And so it's so important that we are aware of our bodies to be the tool to guide us into our trust.
And I guess I could have used the example of when we met each other in the middle of Africa. It was
that's a moment of clarity.
That is a moment of true clarity. It was split second. This is it. I hugged we hugged each other, we embraced each other the first time we met, and I told my friend less than 5 minutes later that was the girl I was going to marry. So it was like, that is ultimate clarity. And I could have used that example in what we were just talking about.
Now imagine if you got tripped up on the awareness component of clarity. Imagine if you were never able to even have that experience. You wouldn't have been awakened to that clarity. We could have hugged, we could have met each other. But if either of us had gotten tripped up on the awareness component of clarity, if either of us got past that and got tripped up on the trust component of clarity, we wouldn't be here today.
Well, and I needed to have that awareness aspect of clarity early on before I had met you, which I did with the Peace Corps decision. So it led up to that.
It's a building of a muscle too. Like a lot of our clients, they're, like I said, they always say, I need more clarity on this. But we come down to find that it is, in fact, lack of self-trust. How many of you really 100% actually trust yourself? And so a lot of this is increasing the awareness, increasing the trust in every area of your life. And then clarity just sort of happens.
Well,
clarity is a byproduct of earning this trust of yourself.
Well, and the lack of trust comes from us seeking outside of ourselves, because ever since we've been born, we seek outside. There is this savior complex that we talk about a lot, and we seek outside of everything. It doesn't matter whether it's for anything. It could be medical advice. It could be, and there's valid reasons to go to a doctor and do all that. But we have the healing tools within ourselves. And we have the intuitive abilities within ourselves. We have the talents, the passions, the skills to get a job done. It's all within ourselves. We don't have to necessarily always go learn it. Now, there's things like, and I don't want you to take this the wrong way, we do have to seek outside sources to help with that. But at the same point, we also need to go within ourselves. And that's where trust is cultivated. It's from within ourselves. It's not from somebody else.
So the question is, why do so many of us not trust ourselves?
Because we've been seeking outside for too long.
But we had to have already not trusted ourselves to be seeking outside.
Maybe we made a wrong decision. Maybe there was somewhere we went wrong along the way and said, oh, you know what, that was a really bad decision. That's where lack of trust starts, in that poor decision. We're all going to make poor decisions. And maybe it wasn't a poor decision, but somebody told you it was a poor decision, where the limiting belief sets in. When you are a kid and your parents tell you that, oh, you know what, Sally, that really wasn't the best decision. That's not the best decision. And then that girl, she develops this limiting belief, and then she stops trusting herself and says, "Oh, well, maybe someone else should make the decision."
It's also societal.
It is
too. I mean, think about it.
Absolutely.
What do our churches tell us? What do our religions? And I'm not bashing religion by any means, but what do our churches tell us? Growing up in the Bible Belt, you didn't trust yourself; you trusted God.
Yep.
You were unworthy. You were less than. You were undeserving. Like, this is perpetuated by some religious teachings.
And it's not just religious; it goes way beyond that. It gets into politics. It gets into every aspect of life.
Since you were born, you've been told not to trust yourself. You've created this belief not to trust yourself.
But the all-knowing soul knows only trust.
and that's an example of one of the layers that covers our brilliant shining light. And then we just keep getting more layers and more layers and more beliefs that aren't true. And so that's why we have to always question why we believe what we believe. Why do we do what we do? We need to question everything. Everything. Because at this point in our lives, we are just products of our environment, our families and friends.
What people have told us all along. How to live.
Exactly. And so this trust, number one, like we were saying, first things first, you got to have the awareness that an opportunity for clarity is near you, right? Number two, then you have to actually trust it. And so breaking that down into like subtopics, how do you know How do you know? Well, tune into your body. What does your body tell you when you do trust something is clear?
And that's where a lot of great visualizations come into place to tap into the feelings of your body, so you know.
Well, and just if you have the awareness, you're able to tap into your body as a tool, because you will know that how to become the observer. You will know how to remove yourself out of that experience, look at it from the objective perspective. That's being aware. That's awareness. And then you can even be aware that you're being aware. Like,
that's
this metacognitive abilities that we have is incredible. So now I was losing down the road.
And I just want to say about observation real quick, because I don't want to lose people here, because this can get a little complicated. We're trying to make this as simple as possible. And when I think about this, the first thing that comes to mind is somebody up above are puppeteers, and they're playing this game of puppets, right? And they're acting out with puppets, but they're seeing the whole thing go on because they're controlling the whole thing, right? So they're seeing it from the outside. So when she says observer, it's removing yourself from that and looking down onto what's happening from an observational point of view and not stuck in it.
Right. It's like pushing the pause button on your old VHS player.
I like it. There we go. That's even better.
I don't know why I chose VHS player.
We all remember the VHS.
So it's like pushing the pause button. And you're literally saying, okay, what's happening here? What is my body telling me in this moment? Is it showing me the indicators of trust? Is it showing me the signs that it usually shows me when I know I can trust in an opportunity of clarity? Is it? If it's not, it doesn't mean that you aren't, in that right moment, but it's inviting you to look deeper. It's inviting you to go further. And so
I do want to say something, though, because you did mention something earlier that kind of struck me in regards to logic, right? And you said, no, maybe it's not logical. And that's the thing. That's the key word right there. Well, maybe it's not logical. Well, that's operating from the mind, and we need the mind. The mind is super important. The mind is helps us in many ways, but we can't rely solely on logic, because if we relied, and we all have relied on logic, it's really hasn't always panned out. But when we rely on our hearts and we go with it, it's like unbelievable. It is so magical of a ride. It's going on the most exhilarating roller coaster. It's jumping off the highest cliff, and shit, it's scary. But you know what? It is the most exhilarating ride operating from that space. So we need to pull logic out of that at times and venture into those unknown territories.
You can even let logic show you, like, well, why am I thinking that this is logical? Who told me that path A is more logical than path B? Where did I learn that path A is more logical?
Society,
so,
people.
The idea of logical is still based on
somebody else's beliefs.
Exactly.
Somebody else's.
The collective beliefs, perhaps, maybe so in your culture. But we need to question logic. We need to question everything. Not to the point of exhaustion, obviously, but like, if we're not...
Well, let's talk about this thing as far as living the way that we've, had to learn this, but have operated, and how things go when we do operate from that. We stay in that flow. Life is just beautiful in every aspect. And we've done this and tapped into this, and it's taken so long for us to get out of our heads. Then we get in our heads and we stay in our heads for a second, and then we pull back out. So it's not fluid all the time. It's not perfect. This isn't. We haven't perfected this, and I think we're getting better at it. But I think that we know what happens when we live in the flow. We're living in the flow right now, and we have with these things that we've been doing and all that. And it's been really cool.
It's been a wild ride. It's been such a wild ride.
Yes.
And the beautiful thing is trust. It's like you said, it's been a long journey. It took us a while. We still haven't perfected it. But that goes to show that you have to almost gain your trust back.
You do.
And imagine if you've been living your whole life, not trusting yourself. Say maybe 6 years old, you created a belief that you couldn't trust yourself. That's a long time. So we have to practice. When we met, we had to start practicing, and we made a commitment to each other to increase our awareness, to peel back the layers and go deeper within ourselves. And we've done it alongside each other.
Mhm.
But we had to practice building trust. Otherwise, you don't know what your body tells you or signals to you when you're in a moment of trust if you haven't been experiencing it. So start doing small things to build your trust of yourself. Start doing small things. You have to get rid of these old beliefs that I don't have the answers. Everyone outside of me has the answers. We have to let go of these old limiting beliefs, but you can't just wipe them away with a dry erase board, eraser. You have to replace them with something, a new belief, because we operate on belief. So you have to replace it with this belief, and then you actually have to act on it. And that's the thing. Like, so many people, when they talk to us about, oh, well, I just can't break these habits. I can't, I just keep doing the same thing over and over again. It's because you haven't fully wiped out the old belief. The old belief is still lingering.
Mm.
We have to replace them with these new empowering beliefs, and we have to follow it and do small things each day that help you regain your own trust.
Well, let me propose this, and this is why it's so important. What we do with a lot of people and what we've done within ourselves is first finding those core values, because those are your guideposts to establish your trust. Because this is the thing, if we have our 6 to 8 core values that we've determined are driving forces, then we know that the decisions we make actually get easier if we make decisions based on those driving forces, which those driving forces actually just come from the heart. That's where the values are actually coming from. So when you're tapping into your core values, you're tapping into your heart. So right there is a great way
you are already creating your clarity.
Yeah.
If you're living in alignment with your fundamental driving forces, if you're living in alignment with your core values, you are creating your clarity with every single choice that you make. It's like, to make clarity, you have to have clarity, right?
That's funny, because that just came to me now.
But not have, because you can't possess it, so you have to awaken to it. So
yeah. And that's what the whole thing with values is like, that is like, literally, it's just a step-by-step process. And the values is the best way to start.
That is another way to build your trust, is knowing your values, because then you can weigh out, like, all right, is this decision I'm about to make
what everybody else told me to do? Or,
which value of mine is this decision I'm about to make in alignment with?
Or not at all.
Or not at all. And which of my core values am I sacrificing by making this decision? This ensures long-term happiness. And you can trust yourself as long as you have awareness of your values. See, once again, the first component is always awareness. You cannot surpass any challenges in this life without it. Even if you think you're aware, you have to have the awareness of old patterns.
Yeah. And
sometimes that's subconscious. Most times that's subconscious.
Yeah.
So we have to do some digging, but we can't get stuck in over-processing either. We have to do some digging, create new empowering beliefs that say, we trust ourselves. I trust that I have my own perfect solutions. I trust that you have your own perfect solutions. And I trust that we can help each other find those perfect solutions, because we have the awareness to do so. And the faith that it works out. The faith that it always works out. And I don't think trust and faith are the same thing.
They're not. When we were first discussing this, it kind of came into the conversation, I remember. And now that I think about it, you're right. They're not the same thing. And faith is just as important as awareness, trust, and everything else we've been talking about in regards to components to clarity.
Faith is the third component of clarity.
Faith is the third component.
So now we're breaking down.
Dissecting this really well, actually. Now I'm feeling good, because when we first started talking about this, or someone had brought this up that we should talk about or whatever, that I don't know if it was the trust component of clarity. The video should be episode 1, the
components of clarity.
The components of clarity, because there are multiple components. And yes, faith is definitely number 3. And faith, man, you can't develop faith without trust.
No.
And that's why faith is the third, because awareness leads into trust leads into faith.
And all along, clarity was the sunshine that was shining forever. It never went away. And just like your metaphor with the blinds peeking through. So clarity never leaves. It's not
always
something
there.
outside of yourself.
It's just getting the process of opening the blinds, it takes a
You
second.
have to make the choice to open the blinds,
Yep.
make the choice to believe that it's the sun shining,
Yep.
and then make the choice to know that as long as you believe this and move forward,
It's all
everything
gonna work
is
out.
all going to work out.
And that's where we get tripped up because
The most.
well, and then what happens is if we have faith at one point, but then we start to fail at whatever we thought was clear, that's when people retreat back through the steps and they pull back because what they think has gone wrong is actually what's helping them to get to the point of
That they
ultimate
need to
clarity. Exactly. And so that's where we get tripped up. And I've gotten tripped up so many times, like, oh shit, this isn't working out. Like, what's going on?
What am I doing wrong?
It is working out. And that's what it is. It's like, okay, I've learned to now, after all these times of going through this wasn't easy. But after all these times of going through it, I had to be like, oh yeah, well, like this little problem that I'm having, I put it in quotations that I'm having, is actually benefiting me in the best way. And that's the old saying. You have to take 2 steps forward sometimes, or take 1 step forward and 2 steps back,
But the interesting thing is that you had to have the awareness of the fact also that experience, that bad experience,
was needed.
Not everybody has that awareness. So what
that's why I said that was
is
tough to develop that.
They pull back and give up because it just keeps happening. What you notice is when you have faith with trust and awareness, clarity never disappears, because when I trust that we're making a good decision or that we're on the right path, when I fully trust that and then something negative happens, it's like you said, you say that, okay, this is an opportunity for us to do something and move on. For me, it's the same thing in a different wording. I like to say that that's a reflection of something inside of us that still needs healing. And as long as this something inside of us still needs healing, this experience will continue to happen. So that's when we use that as the opportunity to say, how am I an energetic match for this experience? What is it that I need to do? And so through that healing process, you actually take that negative experience, that opportunity, you create an opportunity out of it. The universe, whatever you want to call it, is giving us these opportunities over and over and over. We decide with awareness whether we're going to seize that opportunity, use it to our advantage. And that's where the faith comes in, because the faith isn't in other things working out. It's in yourself, knowing you can work through anything.
And that nothing is seemingly bad and it's going to harm you. It's all for your growth. It's all for everything for you to learn these lessons. And it's so funny how many times that I experienced the same things over and over. I said, oh, well, it's just like bad luck. These things are just happening to me. And you play the victim role and it becomes, I've done it. I've been there. But then you get out of that mode because it becomes tiresome and there has to be a new way of living. There has to be a new way of existing. I don't want to exist in this mode anymore. I'm exhausted. It's causing me anxiety. Why am I doing this to myself? Okay, well, then let's look at it. But when you look at it, it comes harder because it's not easy to look at the things that you fears and anxieties and all of these other things that we've gathered is so hard. So that's another component of it, becomes difficult. And we often don't want to live in that uncomfortable spot. But what's beyond uncomfortable? Comfortable.
Exactly. It's
clarity.
It's clarity, and it's seizing it. It's soaking up the sunshine that was already there.
Yeah.
I think it's really important that we remember the key thing from this conversation is that it all comes from within you. You have to have the self-awareness to be awakened to clarity. You have to have the self-trust to be awakened to clarity. You have to have the faith in oneself. I say this a lot. I have faith in the universe. I have faith in the universe. I'm realizing this now. It's okay to have faith in the universe.
You have faith in yourself.
But do you realize that you have to have faith in yourself to fully operate from a place of faith? I have to trust that I'm resilient as fuck. I have to trust that whatever I am an energetic match to experience, I can handle it. I can get myself through it. I have to trust that I am resilient. I have to trust that I am aware. I have to have the faith that I have the trust that I am aware. So they're all together. And this is so empowering Because it means that anything that happens in your life, no matter what it is, if you have the awareness, the trust, and the faith in oneself, it doesn't matter what's happening around you.
That's true power. That's power in a nutshell.
Mm-hmm. That's power.
That's personal power.
So once again, the block is not trusting in oneself. The block is not having faith in oneself. The block is, even precedes that though, it's the beliefs that created that block. It's the beliefs that created that block.
Well, like I said, it stems back to that time where you didn't trust yourself because of one limiting belief.
Because of something that happened.
A poor decision you made and somebody told you it was a bad decision.
Or a million other ways that you could have decided that you were not credible. You were not a credible source to navigate this life.
Yeah. And that's teachers. We've been told that our whole lives. And it's just like the one experience isn't going to do that to you, but the multiple experiences that happen over and over again is what does it to you. And by the time you're in your 20s, you're like, all right, like you are down and out. What is going on? Life is hectic. I certainly don't want to relive those times. But yeah, it's tough. It's real tough. But like there's the rainbow.
See, and I'm hearing, it's almost like I can hear a viewer right now saying, but how do I trust myself and I'm still not having clarity. I have faith in myself, but I'm still not experiencing clarity. That's where I want to challenge you and say, maybe you think you trust yourself, but if you truly did trust yourself on all levels, you wouldn't be chasing clarity. So we have to be willing to be honest with ourselves and go into the bottom layers of our consciousness. We need to be willing to say, okay, I consciously think I trust myself, but I'm still manifesting these experiences that are telling me otherwise. So how can I get deeper? How can I look below the surface? That's something that we're always doing with each other, is challenging each other. Well, if you're experiencing this, and you're feeling this way because of this experience, what would you have to believe about yourself to be feeling this way, thus having this experience? And that's where you notice the keywords are, what would you have to believe about yourself? Because you're almost using your imagination. Because if it's in the unconscious part of your psyche, you don't know what you believe about yourself. So you have to imagine, oh, well, I guess I would have to believe that I'm not capable of having my own perfect solutions. I guess I would have to believe that other people know more than I do. I guess I would have to believe that. So then this is the funny thing, is when the belief actually comes out of your mouth, you know that that's the one. When you say it, when I'm on coaching calls with clients all the time, we'll sift through a few, well, what would you have to believe about yourself to be feeling this way? And sometimes they'll come up, well, maybe I would have to believe that XYZ. Nah, it doesn't really resonate with me. Maybe I would have to believe that XYZ. And suddenly it hits them. And they're like, oh my God, that's what I believe about myself. And I'm being honest with myself right now and knowing that that's what I believe about myself, even though I didn't know it. And a lot of times there's a release, there's tears, it's an aha moment. And then you identify, well, where
did that come from?
When did you stop trusting yourself? Who told you, or what taught you to stop trusting yourself?
And then go right before that moment. And what did it feel like to trust yourself?
Right.
Like before that moment, before that pivotal
what
moment.
What would you have to believe about yourself the day before?
Exactly. Yeah.
And that helps you surpass it. But basically what we're just trying to talk about right now is that you have to gain your own trust by reprogramming your beliefs about you having your own perfect solution. So if you guys are, still with us and hanging out, I think it's been like 45 minutes. If you guys are still with us and hanging out, I'd like to invite you to really get curious about what those beliefs would have to be. And then start to think, what do I want to believe? Now that's when it feels fake, because I could say I believe I have all the perfect solutions. If it's too far off, if it's too far on the other end of the spectrum compared to the original limiting belief of self-trust, it's not going to feel possible.
True.
So people have to adapt that. Maybe say, I'm learning how to trust myself, or I'm learning how to listen to my own perfect solutions.
Mm-hmm.
So you see, it's the muscle building. You
It's
start
the same.
practicing.
You do yoga, you go to the gym, you meditate, whatever it is. There's a muscle to be built, and it takes time. It's not going to happen overnight because I've struggled with this for so long. But eventually, it happens, just like everything else. It happens. It comes together. It all works out.
It all works out. So get super clear on your body signals. Get super clear on the way you hold yourself and believe things about yourself. And take action, like I said earlier. Do little things every day that help you trust yourself more and more. And so that can vary from person to person. What would you have to do to feel like you're gaining your self-trust back?
Mm-hmm.
I have one client that we've been working with. She was with us for 3 months, and it took her, by the end of that 3 months, she was finally starting to see she could trust herself. She re-enrolled for more coaching, and now after a month in, because she already broke down those walls, now she's really starting to trust herself. And that trust came from awareness. It came from being able to use her body as a tool. It came from practicing. She had to practice for all those months to finally get to the point where she says, I trust the decisions that I make are for me.
Yeah.
I trust that I have the resilience.
Yeah. So one, just really get in touch with your body, get in touch with how you feel.
This goes for everything.
It does. It's just really sitting in the moment, constantly doing some deep breathing. It's really simple. It really doesn't have to be complicated. Just get in the moment and tap into how you're feeling. Where do you notice tension? Where do you notice that? But then I will challenge you, when something exciting happens and you get super excited about something, you're really happy, you got some really good news, stop for a second. It's great to live in that. We want to be living that, but let's be ultra present in that and stop yourself and breathe and see where you're feeling that excitement. That is where the magic is.
And that's a practice to build self-trust in reading your body properly.
Exactly. So now you know how you're feeling before that moment happened. You're feeling where there's tension in your shoulders and your neck or whatever, and just things are down, but then you get that glimpse of good news or something happened and boom, it switched all of a sudden. Tap into that then and see how you're feeling. So now you have two things to compare it to. So when you're feeling like shit and you got neck tension and back tension and it just doesn't, or your gut is all just screwed up and tight, then well, maybe this isn't, the best. You're still trusting. We're still able to trust and guide ourselves that way. And then the opposite, when you're tingly and happy and the hairs are standing up on the back of your neck, whatever the feeling is, then you know what that is. So that's where trust comes in right there, right in that glimpse.
And I just kept hearing the word doubt. That's the antithesis of trust, right? And so a lot of people come to us and they're talking about, I just doubt myself. I doubt everything. I doubt whether I made the right decision. I doubt. There's no, I trust. And so, if you find yourself using the words doubt, that means you lack self-trust. If you hear the words doubt, I want to challenge everybody to count throughout your day how many times you use the word doubt. Oh, I doubt it. I doubt this. I doubt that. Start counting how many times you use the word doubt, because I guarantee you it's a lot more than you would consciously want to admit.
It's poison to trust.
And it is. Well, and it's also showing you that you don't trust yourself.
Yeah, so there you go. There's a guidepost.
It's showing you that you don't trust yourself. You're always saying, oh, I doubt that this, or I doubt myself here. I doubt I can this, and adding that tally up, start to notice which of those doubts is really coming from like the inside,
Yeah, I doubt it a lot. I still doubt at times. There's always times that I doubt.
Which is lack of self-trust in that moment.
In that moment, I'm still building up my self-trust. But, I feel like it's getting clearer and clearer, and it's better and better every single day. So, it's a muscle to be built. We don't have it all figured out. We're simply having this conversation, dissecting all of this information for the first time in full detail like we are now. So there's things that are going to come to us through these conversations that we have every week, that, things that we're still working on too. So we're human, just like you.
Mm-hmm. I'd love to know if anybody's still with us. If you have any questions, you can pop it in the live chat. And if you're watching later, you can drop it in the comment box.
Comment below.
We'll definitely comment back through text. We want to hear your questions because this helps us clarify anything that maybe you, perhaps if you were here in person, you would say, well, wait a minute, what about this? Or, well, and I thought this, so what about that? We want this conversation to be free flowing.
And this is the first one, so it's going to take some time to build up with this, but this is something that we're going to continue to do on a myriad of topics.
Every Sunday, 9 p.m. Eastern.
Yep, let's just keep it going, and we're going to pick them all out. I mean, we're going to go down the rabbit hole, and I hope you can join us for this because it's going to be a lot of fun. We want interaction for people to, like she said, if you want to comment after the video, you have a question, we can type back, we can talk about it, we can even have a conversation about it. If it, maybe it's pertaining to another subject, we'll add it to the list. So it's been fun. I really enjoyed this, and really look forward to next week.
And it's probably not a finished conversation. I'm sure that this has many layers and a lot of depth. And so
maybe there's a part 2.
We're hoping to just, plant those seeds and you water them, right?
Yep.
And ask your questions, share your topics. We'll run with it. So we'll see you guys next Sunday, 9 p.m. Eastern.
And we'll have for people that didn't have the link right away, we will have that link set. It's been a little bit of technical issues we've been having, but we finally figured it out. So that link will be 100% set.
And to make sure that you're notified when we do go live or post any videos, be sure to subscribe.
See you guys later. Have a beautiful night.